Thank you, President Denise. Senator Katoa. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Dr. Ange Jury. A lot of you will know that I grew up in America. And despite what might prevail from what you see in the media, I never saw anything that was anything like domestic violence in my whole life. So you can imagine my surprise in 1985 when I was invited to join the Women's Refuge Foundation. And at that point, feeling I needed to do my due diligence, I researched everything I could find on domestic violence. I was overwhelmed to discover just what a challenge and a problem we had, not just in America, not just in New Zealand, but regrettably across Anglo-Saxon countries. The study that I did in 1993, the biggest challenge of New Zealand was that people hadn't woken up like I did in 1995 with Quick's diet. Most New Zealanders that I knew were not aware of the problem here. So the study that I did for the Department of Social Welfare, the biggest challenge I had was showing them that there was an incidence, that there was anything between 1 in 10 and 1 in 25 women in New Zealand being abused or had been abused. People just were completely flabbergasted that that could be true. Of course, Anne knew that from her research, and I knew it at that stage from my own research that these numbers could well be on the low side. So to have Anne come and speak to here today to Rotary is such a major step forward. It means that you now are awake too to the challenges that we have. Having been through COVID, there are going to be some particular issues that might have arisen because of COVID, but there may also, through COVID, have been some solutions that might have been resolved in families. We haven't had time like this in our history to really talk to each other, to negotiate, to learn how to get on with each other. She's so well prepared for this role. As Chief Executive of Women's Refuge, Ange has worked for 20 years in domestic violence arena. She began in the 1990s in the Palmerston North Women's Refuge. She's fulfilled every role within Women's Refuge, and so she knows what it's like to be in the forefront as a volunteer. And she's been an advocate, she's been in management, she's been a board member. In addition, she's been instrumental in the development of cross-agency collaborations, both regionally and nationally. And as we were talking together before now, we both know that those meetings are so important, those collaborations are so important, because since 1993, there have been more people working in this area. Regrettably, we haven't yet nailed the problem. And it's somehow getting those collaborations to be more focused on impact and outcome, and less on finding it as a means of providing revenue for them for things they were already doing. Ange's history through the 1990s also involved teaching, researching, writing, and speaking in the areas of gender and domestic violence while completing her doctoral research, which was an exploration of the role of shame within abusive relationships at Massey University. Dr. Jury has presented her research to numerous forums within New Zealand and internationally, and today we have the pleasure of her insights. Thank you, Ange.
It all sounds a little bit flash. Thanks, Susie. Kia ora, and thank you so much for inviting me to come and speak with you today. This is the first, I was just saying to someone when I came in, this is the first chance I've had to speak to more than a number of people, more than half my office team. So it feels a little bit disorienting, and it's, you know, like all these faces, but pleasant nonetheless. One of the things that I want to do is to thank those of you in this room, and I'm sure there are some of you who were among the thousands of New Zealanders that supported us over the last 3 months. While it might surprise you to hear this, Women's Refuge is a pretty hard sell when it comes to fundraising. We just simply can't compete with puppies, kittens, cute kids. So the way in which everyday Kiwis dug into their pockets was truly humbling, and they did. And so for those of you who did, thank you. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to spend my time today talking to you about two things. But before I do that, it's important to reference what Suzanne was saying and to acknowledge the corrosive family violence situation in this country. Now, while we may lead the world in many ways, and the COVID-19 response was a case in point of this, when it comes to family violence, the picture is far from positive. We shamefully hold the dubious honour of having the highest rates of family violence in the developed world. And this is not showing signs of changing. Research continues to show us that women bear the brunt of this violence. We know that police attended over 120 family violence calls last year, and that figure continues to increase year after year. Now, while that's a shocking enough number in its own right for a country of our size, when you consider that only 25% of family violence is actually reported to police, the reality is, in fact, far more horrifying and something none of us should accept. We really shouldn't. This problem is real. It's immensely damaging to countless women, children and whānau. It costs New Zealand a fortune each and every year, both in direct costs through agencies such as police, the courts, corrections, health services, organisations like ours, along with a lot more intangible and possibly more important costs, like the lost and damaged futures of thousands of New Zealanders. Until something changes dramatically, Women's Refuge will continue to be needed. Now, with that depressing start out of the way, and I never ever give really uplifting speeches, by the way, just so you know, I'll now move on to give you a snapshot of what Refuge is, who we are, what we do. Then I'll talk a little bit about what this work looked like over lockdown. So, Women's Refuge is a network of some 40 refuges, stretching from Katoa up in the north through to Invercargill in the south, and most points in between. And we've been around for almost 50 years now. Actually, I think the year I retire, I think, is our 50th anniversary, so that might be a party. We're the largest provider of domestic and family violence services in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And these refuges employ some 350 full-time equivalent paid staff, supported by roughly the same number of volunteers, mainly serving as governance members or crisis line workers or the like. The refuges provide a range of services ranging from the safe houses we're perhaps best known for, through to community support and advocacy, children and women's programs, community education, training and awareness raising, and other somewhat less well-known services such as whānau protect, and we've recently become involved in transitional housing. Now, over the last financial year, we received more than 57,000 referrals for service. We answered almost 50,000 calls on our crisis lines. It's 132 calls a day. And we provided some 140,000 bed nights, split pretty evenly between our emergency housing and our transitional housing. Our work's always been based around face-to-face interaction. You'd be amazed at how much can really be accomplished over a cup of tea. We work from an empowerment position, assuming women know what they need. We believe that with compassionate caring and skilled support, they're more than capable of managing their lives. Our job then at Refuge is to provide options and support, working alongside women to create and maintain lives free from violence and abuse. So, for Women's Refuge, lockdown was an exercise, given what I've just said, was an exercise in rapid service reconfiguration alongside that of managing the myriad anxieties of staff who were quite understandably worried about themselves and their own families. As an essential service, within a matter of days, we were forced to quickly reimagine our services. We needed to find ways to move to online assessments and phone-based support as opposed to face-to-face conversations. We needed to shift instantly from a model of communal safe housing to establishing separate whānau bubbles. And once level 4 kicked in, all of our safe houses effectively became bubbles for those already in residence, so we couldn't put anybody else in there. This meant that we needed to quickly source alternative accommodation options, locating self-contained motels and Airbnb properties. We had to make decisions about moving staff out of community offices, and many of them didn't want to move out of their community offices to work from home. We had to provide all the necessary infrastructure to make that possible. Not everyone has a laptop, and not everyone, surprisingly, has broadband to their homes. We needed to figure out how to access PPE, the dreaded PPE for our staff, and how to manage necessary face-to-face contacts until we did. We needed to figure out how to safely transport families and their belongings. Clearly, cramming a distressed family of 6 into a people mover wasn't sensible, especially given the lack of PPE in the early stages of lockdown. Police, in this regard, we owe them huge thanks. This was one particular aspect of our service that we'd have really struggled with without the level of support we had from police. And we had to undertake this reorganisation within an atmosphere of this deep, really deep and dark foreboding about what lockdown could mean for victims of domestic and family violence. Based on international reports that I'm pretty sure, like me, you may have seen it in the media as well, where we had media accounts from places like the UK, the States, Europe, Australia, talking of increases in calls for help of up to 60 and 70% more. Oh, that's what we were sort of expecting and preparing for. So what did we see? Well, nothing very dramatic at all, as it turns out, despite intense media demands for scary stories. And at times I almost felt like they wanted our services to be overwhelmed. It was unpleasant, to be honest. Service demand spiked in the 3 or 4 days around the lockdown announcement, so either side of it. And our residential services peaked at some 35% above normal throughout lockdown. But calls to crisis lines fell slightly, and with other avenues of help seeking, like drop-ins with our community offices and the like, effectively shut down, we grew increasingly worried about how those needing our help were faring. Police experienced much the same thing, and protection order applications to the courts halved. They just went from there to there in a matter of weeks. One thing we were sure of was that unless everyone using violence suddenly took our Prime Minister's words to heart and decided to be kind, violence was still occurring. It was just much, much harder to seek help. We did everything we could to ensure contact channels remained open and put considerable effort into reassuring New Zealanders that we were open for business. To broaden contact channels, we worked with an NGO partner to add a real-time web chat function to our shielded site, provide another safe option. For those of you who aren't aware of our shielded site, it's a widget little icon that's hosted on people's commercial websites, and some 500 websites now. I'm very proud of that. And that allows people to go into that icon and contact us in real time, but it doesn't show up in browsers, so they can look like they're shopping at the warehouse or hanging out at Westpac Bank, or now previously that system had required that they provide a phone number or an email address to contact us. So we stood that thing up in 5 days. That was my proudest thing over lockdown. So now, fast forwarding a couple of months, what we're starting to see is different. As the new normal of level 1 feeds in, Refuges are starting to report getting busier, much busier. I haven't seen police data yet, so I don't know what they're seeing, but I am concerned. Times of economic hardship, and we've seen this before, provide a perfect incubator for family violence. As unemployment rises, so too do things like poverty rates, homelessness, mental health challenges, and substance abuse issues. Now, none of these in themselves cause family violence. That's the outcome of one individual choosing to use violence against somebody else. But they do provide the perfect environment for it to grow. So I am a little bit concerned, quite concerned about that. However, while I remain worried, there are some points of reassurance. Our government has signalled that they are aware of the potential and they've moved to support agencies like us tasked with dealing with it. They were quick to recognise the cost of us, for us, during lockdown and for many other NGOs, distributing emergency grant funding within the first few weeks. And I cannot exaggerate, I cannot say it strongly enough, this was a massive relief to refugees who literally felt like they were shoveling money out the door to motels and Airbnb providers. More recently, the budget to 2020 provided the first significant funding boost to women's refuge in more than a decade. It's no exaggeration to say that this funding will be transformational to us. It's going to allow us to pay our people properly. It'll allow us to recruit and retain more skilled people. And it'll mean we no longer have to repeatedly abuse the goodwill of staff by asking them to give us uncounted volunteer hours on top of their paid work. And honestly, we do presume upon the law. In short, we'll be able to treat our own people as we treat women and children accessing our services with respect, care and compassion. And on that slightly more positive note, not wanting to depress anyone anymore, I'm going to close off now and thank you very much for listening. And the best part of any presentation I do is answering people's questions. So, do people have questions?
I do.
Go Denise.
We'll come and stand here. So we're both here, we are, we'll both get the camera and the microphone. So and I'd really like to hear about what Rotary, as an organisation, as clubs, can do to help address an issue that we tend not to talk about.
Okay. I could put my fundraising hat on here and say cash is king. And, you know, money is always welcome, but I'm not going to do that because one of the things that I really want to see before I retire, another 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would really like to see that we've started to track down a little bit with these terrible numbers that we had. Now, what that's going to require is a real societal change. So what that's going to mean, I'm sure across most of this audience today would say they have little, if any, minimal interaction with domestic and family violence. Actually, I would say probably if you looked more broadly and looked more closely, I think you might see something different. And so that's the thing that I think people can do to make a difference and to support our work, is to take us out of business. You know, if we are all saying to people, are you okay? And that isn't okay, and can we help? Even if it's the neighbours, if it's your cousin's nephew's daughter, you know, like if we just pay attention and don't stay silent, I think we can actually make a difference. So cash is king. Yeah, if somebody wants to help us out financially, that is absolutely brilliant. But if we're going to get some change, it requires people to do different stuff. Does that answer your question, Denise?
And could I just ask, what proportion of your funding does government contribute?
Prior to our funding announcement, it was around 50 to 60% in any given year. We're not quite sure of the distribution yet of the additional funding, but it looks like it's going to take us up to 80–85%.
So you rely on donations and grants for the rest?
Yeah. And we have an active fundraising unit, and all of our refuges do annual fundraising as well. And that is as it should be, really, because if we were fully government funded, that would mean I wouldn't be able to critique anything government did. We would become merely another servant of the government. So I believe that we are very close to being very fairly funded now. No. Yeah. No, I don't have statistics, but what I can say is that of the women that come to our service, the vast majority of them do not want to leave their relationship. They want to stay, they want violence to stop. So many that, like, people come to our safe houses simply because they cannot stay at home. We don't just take everybody in just because they want a few days off. They actually have to be too unsafe to stay home. But even for those women, they don't necessarily want their relationship over. They love their partners. They're invested in a future with their partners. They want to make it work. Sometimes it simply can't. You know, sometimes it's simply too far down that road, too much damage, generally to the perpetrator, to be able to make a difference. But we have to work with where they are. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, I mean, and we do have those successes, and those successes generally come through our refuges having close partnerships with stopping violence services. So if we have a woman who we're working with and she and he both really want to make a difference, we can actually hook up with that service, that stopping violence service, to see if we can get some modification of behaviour. It's actually the best way if they're both actually receiving services at the same time, because they understand the process each other is going through. But it requires a desire, an acknowledgement that behaviour is wrong, and a desire to do different. And I believe most people do want to do it differently. I don't think there's many people that roll out of bed in the morning and decide, I'm going to make their life miserable today. You know, I don't think they do that. I think it's just a matter of an inability and a lack of knowledge about how to do it differently, and a lack of belief that it can change.
You mentioned that New Zealand has to possibly the best domestic violence. What are the major features that society needs to that?
Okay. Well, first off, I will say that while I use that fact that we have this highest rate of violence in the OECD, I don't necessarily accept that. But it is what the research says, so I'm prepared to go along with it for the time being. But when I talk to colleagues overseas, I go to the odd conference in different places, and when I talk to colleagues from the States, from Australia, from Canada, some places in Europe, they talk about the same service demands. They talk about the same levels of violence. That it feels very similar. So I wonder sometimes, and we can never know this for sure, but because there's no central data collection or anything, but I believe that New Zealand is much better at counting stuff than a lot of other international jurisdictions are. And we count things because our domestic violence legislation is actually really comprehensive and really good, and our definition is pretty good too. We count properly. I'm not sure that all other members of the OECD do. And the UN regularly pokes sharp sticks at this lack of data.
One more quick, I can't see any.
There's no questions coming.
on
Yeah.
chat.
I'll try.
There is one, so we'll take one from Alex. Unmute, Alex.
Kia ora, Ange. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yep.
We have two questions from the online community that are similar, so I'll ask them both at the same time, and you may be able to address them. So the first is, as a community, we managed to change attitudes to drink driving and to cigarette smoking. Do you have any suggestions about the approach to family violence that will win over the community? And the second question is, you mentioned not staying silent as a societal shift. As every scenario is different, what steps would you advise community members if one was to witness or be aware of a violent scenario?
Yeah. The first one, I'll answer that around the other way, Alex. I mentioned intervening and not staying silent. And Alex has asked what we could do, what we should do. And I think the first thing that people need to do is to be aware of what family violence looks like, what it does to people, and who in the community actually knows about it and can offer support. So that you can actually talk to those people and find out how to intervene safely. It's very important. If you get it wrong the first time you talk to somebody, they will probably never talk to you about it again. They just simply won't. So it's important to understand that. Now, the other question that Alex asked was about how New Zealand has had such great success with public campaigns around drunk driving, cigarette smoking, I would argue too, seatbelts in cars, and whether or not that's the sort of thing that could actually help with family violence, and I really believe it could. It requires a very sustained effort to make a change, and it requires commitment across over time. Because I mean, we didn't stop drink driving. I mean, I'm sure there are any number of you in this room today who can remember driving with a couple or three under your belts. Nobody nodding? You're angels, absolute angels. I can certainly remember the days when smoking inside was perfectly acceptable. Half the houses in the country had an ashtray beside the bed. And drinking and driving. Yeah, I can remember when seatbelts were truly an optional extra, like they were a decoration. Now, if we can actually change those things, we can surely do better around family violence. The It's Not Okay campaign at the moment are doing a big revamp of the way they're approaching it, and I think you can expect to see some slightly different advertising coming out. Well, I'm hoping we will anyway. And I think I've run out of time because Suzanne is approaching me.
Thank you so much, and thank you for telling the angels here today about what they can do, because I know this group will follow suit. Just for people's background, back at the beginning of the new millennium in 2000, the total budget for One's Refuge was about $3 million. And despite business cases at the Department of Social Welfare, we could not get the government of the day to agree to another $1 million. So this latest package is about $200 million.
We don't get.
You don't get all that, I know.
Unfortunately, we don't get anywhere near that.
But we're talking about a government that understands the importance of investing in you. And all of you can help invest, both with cash, but also this whole idea of societal change will come from you talking to people about relationships. Thank you so much. We really appreciated that talk. And